Good evening. Thank you so much for watching HealthLine on PBS Fort Wayne. I'm your host, Mark Evans. Tonight, we're going to be talking about something that's going to be fairly topical during the holiday season. We're talking about weight loss, maintaining weight, or gaining weight. And I believe our physician on hand tonight, our friend Dr. Ryan Singerman, will agree that, what is it, about 7 to 10 pounds each holiday season the average person gains?
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's no need for that. So we're going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about some of the most famous and most heard weight loss myths. And I think you're going to be surprised by a good number of these. So while we're talking about that, I want you to give us a call at 866-969-2720. Anytime in the next half an hour, we'll take your call regarding weight loss, weight management, basically, because Dr. Ryan Singerman is a weight management specialist. On top of that, or prefacing that, you're actually a DO.
Yes, sir. That's right.
And that's a little bit different from an MD.
It's a little bit different. In our country, we've got two different kinds of physicians. You've got your MDs, or medical doctors, and you've got your DOs, who are doctors of osteopathy. I won't bore you with minutia, but back in the early 1800s, there was a split between a doctor who didn't like the way, who was an MD at the time, the way doctors are doing things, and thought, well, is there a better way? What's a more holistic approach? And he founded osteopathy with this idea of being a bit more holistic from the outset, from like a medical school standpoint. And so you find that between MDs and DOs, more DOs tend to be like in the primary care, more preventative medicine, maybe more of like a pediatrician or family medicine, which is where I hail from, more as a family medicine background.
Okay, and the medical doctors generally attack the problem, the current situation. But I mean, they also obviously are qualified to help prevent.
Absolutely. It's the same thing. So as an osteopathic physician, we do the surgeries, we do the medical prescribing, the diagnosis and everything like that. It's just a really bit of a difference of initial philosophy. Not that there aren't MDs who don't practice holistically, not that there aren't DOs who practice, super laser focus on the problem. It just, from a philosophical standpoint, a little bit different of approach between different things.
And that's interesting. Most of the doctors I've had in my life have been DOs. So yeah, I think I've been in pretty good hands. We're going to talk about this weight loss thing, we've talked about this before.
Sure.
I've been a weight loss yo-yo during my life. I've lost lots of weight, and I put some of that weight back on. Luckily now, I'm in a very happy place. I've lost about 40 pounds in the last year and a half. Want to continue doing that, so I'm sure I'll be learning some things, as well as our viewers tonight, on how to do that. So let's talk about some of these myths. When I was sent this list by you earlier this week, I was laughing because I don't know how many times I've asked these questions myself and also heard them. But the first one right off the bat, and again, he's going to straighten me out if this is not a fact, but I'm not eating enough to lose weight.
Yeah, I hear that one a lot, and I think it's a struggle because when you want to try to lose weight, there's all these different fad ideas that are out there, but when people say, I can't eat enough to lose weight, they're saying is that there's this idea that you put your body into starvation mode and then it hoards calories and doesn't lose weight well. What they really are talking about is if you don't eat enough, then you get this overwhelming hunger, and then you can go into like binging episodes, which is not what you want. But from a very high level, if you don't consume the appropriate amount of calories, then you will start to have your body burn the stored energy and you will lose weight. If it was actually true that you could not eat enough and then you would not lose, or you would not be able to lose weight, then the idea would be that if you had someone who was lost on a desert island, or somebody who was in a jungle somewhere and they've been out there for weeks, and because they can't find proper nutrition, if it was really true that you can't undereat and you wouldn't lose weight, then you come see these people, they'd be massive. But no, they have completely pulled down all their calories. Their body's burned off all of their body fat. Their body's burning down even their muscle to sustain itself. So the reality isn't that you have to eat more than you think to try to lose weight. That's not the way it works. You have to make sure you're eating that calorie deficit. So oftentimes what we see are people who are eating 3, 4, 6 times a day, maybe even more than they normally would, with this idea of, I can't lose weight because I'm not eating enough. When actually what they're doing is they're overfeeding themselves and actually perpetuating the problem.
Yeah, and on the other side of the coin, there's a ketogenic diet out there, and you're burning your own storage fat. And that could even be dangerous because you can be dabbling into using your muscle fibers as for energy.
So it's a balance. Anytime you're trying to lose body weight, the trick is losing body weight. you've got to have proper nutrition altogether. If you put yourself too far into a calorie deficit, then what can happen is you can actually be disrupting your vital organs. And so you want to have either a physician who's trained in it or a registered dietitian help you find out what is an appropriate calorie balance for you so that you're eating in a healthy manner. You want to be able to lose weight and preserve as much muscle mass as possible. So making sure you're still getting your fruits in, getting your vegetables in, getting your proper protein so you can keep up that body mass. When you do start burning fat, whether it's the ketogenic diet or a different type of one, then what happens is over time, you start burning off these energy cells, and you're not getting that same energy burst like you would if you're eating a piece of fruit or a brownie or a piece of bread, because you're burning it from your fat cells. So that's where you get this kind of achy feeling that can come by. That's how you can get the lack of energy. That usually doesn't last for too long. But if you are under eating tremendously the amount that you should be, you can actually be putting yourself in a little bit of danger. You can be messing up your electrolytes, you can be messing with your heart rhythm. So things you've got to be careful with.
Yeah, that's tricky stuff. Okay, here's another one. BMI, and you'll probably have to explain what BMI is, but BMI is the best way to measure my health.
Yeah, so BMI is an old measurement that we've had around really since about the 1940s. It was even developed before that, but it became popularized by the American military because we were trying to figure out how does our country, who's about to send a bunch of people to World War II, how do you feed an army? And the BMI, or body mass index, was this calculation that looked at your height and your weight with a little bit of a mathematical formula and says, okay, here's a normal BMI range between, let's say, 20 to 25, well, 20 to 24. 25 to 29 is overweight, and anything that is 30 and over are differing degrees of the disease of obesity, okay? Well, that unfortunately doesn't work great for a couple different reasons. The BMI chart we classically look at was really only developed for like your 18 to 24-year-olds. And so as you age out of that, the body fat does redistribute and your body burns less calories as you get older, which is frustrating, but I didn't write the script. It just is what it is. So the older we get, you're going to have some changes to what's considered healthy or normal for your body. But if you take just a look at the BMI, the struggle is the BMI, you classically someone has unhealthy body weight if their BMI is over 30. But we now know that unhealthy body weight is better defined as excess body fat that puts a risk to your health, which really takes away that number of a BMI. Because technically, you can have the disease of obesity at a BMI lower than 30, depending on your age, depending on your demographics, what your genetic background is, like an Eastern Island Pacific origin, or looking at somebody who is maybe of a Asian descent or a African American descent or even a Hispanic descent. Because of the different genetics and how that's expressed, you could technically develop the disease of obesity at a BMI lower than 30 because of how the unhealthy body fat starts to accumulate. So in essence, BMI itself also does not take a look at the difference between body fat and muscle. You can be very muscular and have very low body fat and still have too high of a BMI, but that doesn't mean that you are unhealthy. So actually BMI is an okay measure for health, but the single best measure for health that you can do just at home is actually a true waist circumference measurement. If you were to get like a tape measure, preferably a cloth one, and you were to measure yourself 2 inches above your belly button and take that diameter, the more narrow that is, the better your health is. And here's why. When we gain body fat, it's not just under our skin. It's not just here in the belly. It's actually deep inside too, and it's around your kidneys, it's around your pancreas, it's around your liver. And that deep tissue, we call it the viscera, or the visceral fat tissue. That measurement is a much more accurate indication of your health. And so if you have, let's say, your big strong arms or big strong legs, and you're exercising and got great exercise capacity, but your body fat is getting too high, yeah, you may have great exercise capacity, but overall health is at risk. So the one measure I'd recommend, if you're really curious about it, isn't necessarily what your weight is, but what is this waist measurement?
Okay, good point. I want to remind our viewers that we are taking calls. Dr. Ryan Singerman, who is a weight management specialist, also a DO, he is answering questions about some of the weight loss myths we've heard. And also we're talking a little bit about how to keep that weight off during the holiday season. Here's one for you. It's kind of in the, I don't know, the realm of the magic pill, but I heard supplements will help me lose weight.
The supplement industry is always a challenge. I think the biggest thing with the supplement industry is the fact that it's not regulated. There are about $700 to $1 trillion worth of supplements that are bought a year in the United States. Wow. It is a massive, massive industry, and it's completely unregulated by the FDA. That's not right or wrong, but the challenge is that you're really taking the company's word for it, that every bottle has what it says in it, and every pill has what it says in it. The thing that is interesting, there was an FDA study in consortium with the, not Merck Medical Group, it'll come to me, out of Boston, I'm blanking on the name of it, but there was some massive studies that were done with like the Mayo Clinic, there we go. Oh, okay. So what happened was they looked at the supplements that were being put on the over-the-counter or being sold as natural herbal remedies and found that 90% of them had off-label medicines that were in it that were not listed on the label at all. So they had things like old weight loss medicines that were pulled off the market in the United States because they were found to be deadly. They had things like blood thinners in it. They had psychotic medications in it, and they had even medicines that were diuretics that make you urinate more.
Right.
Now, so you take these things and you think, oh, I'm feeling this effect. You think, oh, it's because they have this natural blend of herbs and spices or whatever they say in there. And it turns out the real reason to feel that way is because they actually had adulterated it with these medicines that they were getting from China or from Russia and putting in the pill. Now, that's not to say all supplements are wrong or all supplements do that, but you have to be really careful when you go to take a supplement. If it's given you the effect that you think it, and it's really working, you may want to take a step back going, okay, what's really in this? And that's where if you're going to use diet or you're going to use exercise or you're going to use nutritional supplements, always want to talk to your doctor about it first and make sure that we're monitoring blood pressure, monitoring your lab levels, make sure there's nothing in that thing that you don't know is there and it could be causing problems. Yeah,
it could be something that you never even dreamed would happen.
Absolutely.
What about the old, I can't lose weight because of my hormones?
So that is a yes and a no.
Okay.
So one of the biggest things that we often hear, and I'm going to get stoned when I leave the studio tonight, is that exactly.
People are going to throw stones at you, you mean?
Well, here's why. Because we often hear, especially from women, is I can't lose weight because I'm in menopause. Or I hear that you gain weight because you're going through menopause. Well, actually, the lowering of your estrogen, the lowering of your progesterone in a woman, when you look at the comparison in large studies, does not cause weight gain. And that's where I'm going to get stoned. It's so hurt. Even physicians report this over and over again, that menopause is what causes weight gain.
Right.
Menopause shifts where body weight is stored. So with women, we're gaining more weight in the periphery. When you go through menopause, it tends to shift it more centrally. So it may seem like, well, I'm gaining weight because I'm getting more of a belly, but actually pound for pound, it stays about the same. What does cause weight gain in menopause is actually a couple of different factors, which was really interesting. There was some great studies done in Europe and some in Australia that helped prove this. The first thing is, we alluded to this earlier, as we get older, we just burn less calories. As we get older, it's just easier and easier to gain weight. And as someone in my 40s, I'm already recognizing I can't get away with what I did when I was in my 20s, right? And as someone who is maybe a little bit older than that, you're probably feeling you couldn't get away with as much as you could either. And it's harder to burn that off anyway.
Right.
That's just normal human physiology. So one, just being older, and most women going through menopause in their 50s, you're starting to see that cascade effect. The second thing is, for many people in our culture, around the time that women are going through menopause, they're usually going through some socioeconomic changes. Maybe they're getting close to retirement, or maybe they're more financially viable so they can go eat out more, take more vacations. Maybe their kids are no longer in the house. They don't have to cook as much as they were, so they're more likely to do fast food. Maybe there's, it's empty nesters, maybe it might be more day drinking. There's things that happen that culturally shifted, so you start seeing this calorie creep that goes alongside of reduced calorie burning on a day-to-day basis because of aging. So in that sense, it's not just those hormones like the estrogen, progesterone for menopause. The other hormone that people often blame for not being able to lose body weight is having an underactive thyroid. I'm sure you've heard similar, oh, I can't lose weight because of my thyroid.
Oh, yeah.
The struggle with that one is the weight loss associated with correcting an underactive thyroid has nothing to do with body fat. So if you have a floridly underactive thyroid, the issue that you're dealing with is that the body shifts fluid, and you get this condition called myxedema. I'm going to bore people out there tonight, but there it is. Myxedema is where you have fluid that builds up on the front of your legs, and it can be pounds of fluid that build up there. So when you correct that, what you have happen is the body weight goes down, not because you're losing body fat, but because that fluid is going away.
Yeah.
So really, when you look at an underactive thyroid, the data shows very clearly that you have an associated lower body hunger with it, so that the net effect from a body fat percentage is about neutral. So although you can say, hey, I can't lose weight because of my thyroid, actually it's not that is the key piece that people tend to think it is.
Yeah, you hear about the thyroid from time to time.
Absolutely.
All right, we are going to go ahead and let you know that number at 866-969-2720. We have about roughly about 10 minutes before the program ends, and we have a call coming in right now. And it looks like James is asking us to ask the question for him. Do people with drug addiction gain weight when they beat their addiction?
That's a really great question,
it is.
James. So let me answer that in a couple of parts. Let's start with some illegal drugs, and then let's also then talk about things like nicotine and marijuana and other drugs that people may use. And we can even use alcohol in there as well. So for many illegal street drugs, it depends on how they were beating that addiction. There are some medicines that are used that can help blunt the effect of those illicit drugs, but then can make you overall hungrier. There are some therapies that can do the same. And in many cases, we say that people who are using drugs of abuse of any kind are self-medicating. That might be something that you're familiar with. And when you're self-medicating, it means you're trying to treat maybe a psychiatric issue, maybe you're trying to treat a hormonal issue, maybe you're trying to just get to the emotional struggles that you're dealing with, and you're using these substances to take care of that. But if you no longer use that substance, what is there for you that you can turn to? And when you look at this hormone in our brain called dopamine, it's the feel-good hormone. It's the stuff that makes you feel good when you're gambling, or when you are having sexual relations, or the other big place you get this is like bungee jumping, risk-taking behavior. You get these big dopamine surges. But one of the biggest places humans get dopamine surges is from food. And it makes sense then that if you were using a substance, well, now you've got food that can give you that pleasure. And so, yeah, you're going to hit those ding-dongs or the Oreos, or you just love to eat chicken and you're eating more chicken or wings. You know, you can easily find that becomes a replacement. There are some drugs, though, whether they're things like the methamphetamines, okay, whether you do some kinds of speed, whether you're abusing the ADHD medicines that some people can get into. There are things like even nicotine or cocaine. Those kinds of things, when you use those regularly, it actually elevates, it makes you burn more calories. And so if you are stimulating your body and burning all these calories and then you stop, well, then, of course, that body weight's going to start to pick back up afterwards because you're no longer burning the same amount. Sure. That's one of the reasons why smoking cessation is really, really challenging. I think it's one of the myths you might have had there.
Yeah, I was going to collide right into that.
Yeah, so that's a great topic. The reason why it can be so hard to quit smoking and not gain weight is for a few reasons. One, you're not getting those dopamine hits anymore from the cigarettes, so you're likely to turn to something else. The second thing is that nicotine is a stimulant. It's like taking caffeine. It's like taking, like some methamphetamine.
That's one of the reasons people like to smoke.
Yeah, it keeps you awake. It suppresses your appetite. It makes you more energetic. There was an old saying, I did some diving into this recently because I wrote a blog article about nicotine and weight loss. It turns out it's not true that doctors ever recommended women to smoke back in the 1950s to keep their weight down. Yeah. But I've heard that enough. I thought that was real. Yeah. So I had to go see if that was a myth, and I know it's not actually true.
I had aunts who actually said that.
Right. It turns out it was actually an advertisement from one of the tobacco companies that showed a woman smoking while carrying a baby, and then that kind of morphed into a myth that doctors recommended. Although I did actually see a old newspaper clipping that said something like Marlboro is the brand most preferred by doctors to smoke, and I thought that was funny. Yeah. But going back to why it's such a hard thing, so if you are having something that you're smoking that's keeping your hands occupied, that's pushing down your appetite, that's burning more calories because of the effect of the nicotine, what's going to happen when that stops? With a higher metabolism, the higher calorie burn is going to drop back down. Your hunger levels are going to also go up, and you're no longer getting that dopamine. So what are you going to do? You're going to pick at things. You're going to start exactly.
Right.
And so that's why it can be such a challenge to keep the body weight down. You're not only having the physiologic changes of no longer smoking, but now you have the neuropsychiatric kind of addiction pathway that is feeding in. You're going to find something else to grab at to.
Wow.
Yeah.
It all kind of links together.
It does.
Well, we have about 5 minutes left, Dr. Singerman, and I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about how to survive through the holidays.
Sure.
I think that it's the time of the year. Let's talk about that. Some tips from you.
Yeah. So I think a couple of things. The first one would be really be mindful of drinking your calories. There's always something out there, whether it's with alcohol or juices or pops or sweet teas, you have all this different stuff that's out there. So if you're gonna have that glass of wine or you're gonna have some eggnog and it's gonna have this fully loaded with calories, maybe don't also have that piece of pie or that cookie alongside of it. Or make that choice, make that exchange, because if you have both, you can be doubling or tripling the amount of calories you're getting all at once.
And I think that's a good point, because when we think about registering in our mind what we've eaten, the calories we've consumed, are we actually taking into account what we're drinking as well?
Many people don't.
Yeah.
And that's something that we, as a society, need to wake up to a little bit, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, that's next time you come back.
Sure, that would be my pleasure. The other thing is, when you are having that Christmas meal or the big get-together, and you have all these great options out there, I encourage you not to take a whole portion of each of those things, but maybe just take a tablespoon for a taste of everything. Then you can really see what you want to spend your calories on. That way you're getting to try a little bit of everything without overindulging into it.
Right, and I even saw, I did a little research on top of the things that you sent me, but we talked about fast food isn't always fattening. You got to make good choices on that. But here it is. To lose weight, you have to give up all your favorite foods.
No, that's not true at all.
No,
I'd be pretty miserable. I think most people would be pretty unhappy about that. But what we're trying to help you understand is, if you're going to try to lose body weight and be healthy, have somebody help you find out what would be a healthy calorie balance for your day-to-day life. And then treat that like you would an account sheet, a budget. Okay, I want to have that glass of wine later. I want to have the piece of pie later. That means I can't have this handful of chips, and I need to only have half the bread with this sandwich, or whatever that exchange is going to be to help get you into a healthy place. But there's people out there who have difficulty with eating healthily, or they have a hard time with the mindset with it. And so even making those exchanges can put them to a place where maybe triggers some anorexia or bulimia or things like that. So if that is someone, if you're one of those people and you're out there, please make sure you're reaching out for appropriate help so we can get you that care that you need, because everyone deserves a chance to be healthy.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes we just don't know how to be healthy.
Right.
We're using old habits. And we were talking about food and a little bit about preparation there. We also have to keep in mind how we're preparing the food. Are we deep frying it? Are we frying it in the skillet? Or are we doing it through the air fryer where we're not having a whole lot of grease? We better get to a call before we run out of time. Becky is on line 5. She's asking us to ask this question. I'm diabetic and I'm on a strict diet. What other ways could I lose weight?
So that's a great question. One of my favorite things to do and help people get healthy with body weight is helping get people off insulin, helping them get to a place where they don't need to take more medicine. So being on a strict diet can be difficult depending on what you're looking at. So the first question is even with being on a strict diet, are your calories that you're getting here, and is this your goal? Can we get that in line? If you're eating what you should be, is your body not treating it right? It's treating like it's too many calories, and we need help get that body to burn its things appropriately. So what I would encourage you to do is, if you're trying to lose body weight, you're on a strict diet and things don't seem to be working, the last thing I want you to do is to blame yourself. The first thing you should sit down and go, okay, is my nutrition where it should be? If it is, then you sit down to the doctor and say, what else am I missing? If you don't even know what your nutrition is supposed to be, then you need to sit down with a doctor, you need to sit down with a registered dietitian and have that information given to you so that you can be set on the right path. For many people, you can walk the right path if you're given the rule book to do it, and that's what we're here to help you to do.
And of course, we talked about this before. Fad diets don't work. And you did suggest the last time you were here that any time that you're really considering going on a diet or on a weight loss plan, you should advise your doctor about it.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure the doctor would have plenty of advice for you as well.
And if not, there's plenty of people out there who are available who can help out. Just for my own 2 seconds here, I was on a long journey to help people learn how to lose body weight, and I had to go through a lot of training myself to how to do it. And so it's not something that all physicians are taught how to do.
Right.
But there's more and more of us out there learning to do it.
Yes, and I'm so glad that is the case, because I do remember there was that rumbling rumor that physicians just don't know anything about weight loss and diet. And so good to have people like you getting into the trenches on that.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Ryan Singerman, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's my pleasure as well.
And let's have you back again sometime after the first of the year.
That sounds great.
All right, very
Thank you.
good. We thank you for watching. Thank you for your questions. We wish you a very happy holiday season, a safe one and a healthy one at that. Until next time, good night and good health.
The preceding program on PBS Fort Wayne was made possible in part by...
It's a new day at Parkview, another day to rise up and make life better for those around us. Whether that means pushing the boundaries of what's been possible, taking big strides, or sitting with a patient long after a shift has ended. At Parkview, we don't just do what's expected. We do what's best for you and your family. And we're determined to do it even better tomorrow. Every person, every day. That's the kind of healthcare we believe in. Parkview Health. We believe in better.